first met him in 2006 at E2O. He came over and vined me. It was a little longer than a vine, actually. He's one of the smartest guys. He saw social so many years before now, probably 10 years ago. He was an analyst at Forrester, an analyst later at Altimeter, one of the principal founders. He called me about a year ago when he found out we were going to be back here and said, I want to come to Social Shakeup. I said, Jeremiah, why? I know you're now on this whole new venture with crowd companies, and you're talking about collaborative economy. What does that have to do with social and social business? And for the next hour, it was like, you know, that classic Maxell commercial where your hair's being blown back. I just listened. I'm so happy that he's here to talk to you today and to make the link between social business and where we're heading. Please welcome to the stage, ladies and gentlemen, Jeremiah Owyang.
Good morning, everybody. I'm here to talk about, thank you, the next phase of social business. And I'm here to answer what the collaborative economy means for the businesses of the future. Quickly, a show of hands. Has anybody here used Uber, Lyft, or Sidecar? Okay, wow, nearly every hand. Has anybody funded anything on Indiegogo or Kickstarter? Okay, how about stayed in an Airbnb? Okay, a lot of folks raised their hands. You are all participating, as Brian calls, in the human-to-human collaborative economy. A few years ago, I recently visited Denmark, and I got to learn about King Frederick VII. King Fred was born a king, but he was about to lose it all. And when I mean all, I mean his head. All across Europe, there were revolutions. The crowd revolution was taking down governments. Kings and queens were losing their heads. King Fred had one of two choices. The first choice is to fight this actual revolution head on and potentially lose his head, or two, collaborate with this crowd and actually figure out a way to work with them. What choice did King Frederick choose? I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I want to talk first about the revolution on your doorstep today. You might have seen on the cover of The Economist, the sharing economy, when people are getting what they need from each other rather than buying it from a brand. Cars, homes, food, services, time, money. Or you might have seen on the cover of Wired, the maker movement, where people make their own goods instead of buying them from brands. Now, this is an interesting change. What's going to happen in the future? But before we look at the future, let's take a look at the past. I'd love to see a show of hands. Did anybody create a website in 1994? Quite a few hands. And if you remember, you had to have technical capability. HTML, JavaScript, home site, Alera, Dreamweaver, FTP, and you had to have a server. It was difficult to create a website, but if you did, you had power over the world. In the next phase, and we're here now, in 2004, a young gentleman named Mark created a website called thefacebook.com, where anybody with technical skills can publish. It's easy. Anybody can publish without technical capability. Or frankly, you don't even need social skills to publish, but that's a whole nother topic. The world was democratized. People could create media, and people could share media, free or cheaply. Are you ready for the next phase? 10 years later, 2014, right now, we are entering the next phase. And this is the collaborative economy. When the crowd is creating their own products, crowdfunding these products, and sharing what they already have. Remember how journalists, media, Blockbuster, Kodak was disrupted? Well, if you're a company in the physical world, you're going to experience similar changes. Now, this is an opportunity, and I've heard on the stage yesterday people questioning, is how important is social media? Does the C-suite care? Is it over? Is it just a paid game? I'm just trying to clean up all these different accounts. There's over 300 accounts in my company. I feel like I'm doing social media sanitation. I'm not being strategic. Well, if you feel any of those symptoms, the good news is all of the skills that you built up in social business, you're ready for this next phase. This is the next phase of your social business career, the physical world. Now, let's define what this actual world is. But let's ask a damning question. If people are getting what they need from each other, what role do corporations play? And the good news is, there is an opportunity. Just like companies join the internet and social media, we're now going to join the collaborative economy. I like to pose this working draft definition. The collaborative economy is an economic model where the creation, ownership, and access of goods and services are shared between peoples and corporations. The crowds and companies can work together. Now, I'm not alone in this. 10 months ago, and with my colleague Angus Nelson, we launched Crowd Companies. In the spirit of Marketing Profs, socialmedia.org, or WOMA, Crowd Companies is for large corporations in this space. And I want to shout out to some of our members who are here today: Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Whole Foods, and SAP, and many others. If you see your logo up on this screen, come chat with us. We'll tell you which one of your team members is participating. We'll love to get you engaged as well. Now, you're probably wondering, who cares? Why is Jeremiah on stage? Does this matter to my business? So let's ask and answer this question. Is this a business disruption? And I'd like to introduce to you, on your physical tables in front of you, grab that diagram. And this is the collaborative economy honeycomb. Mr. Brian Solis was an inspiration and helped create this. Thank you, sir. And in nature, honeycombs are one of the perfect geometric shapes. See, honeycombs are both resilient and efficient. They're resilient because you can put a lot of weight on a honeycomb and it won't crumble. It's also efficient because there's no wasted space between any of the cells. If you use circles, there'll be small gaps between circles. Squares can't hold up the weight. So honeycombs are an ideal shape for a resilient and efficient world. Now, this honeycomb is a great metaphor for this collaborative economy. And in the center of this collaborative economy are the people. And I'd like to share with you, in the council, we encourage the members not to use the word consumer. What? Coke, Walmart, we're telling them not to use the word consumer? Why? Because it's a very different type of person now. These people are makers, crowdfunders, people who share. They're empowered people. It's a different behavior. Remember 10 years ago, we said don't call them the audience. In social media, they're participants. Who remembers that? Remember that? There's no more audience. Everybody's talking. The same thing's happening for the physical world now, the empowered people. Next, we're going to go through 6 different verticals. I'm going to show you examples of how industries are becoming peer-to-peer. And by the way, there's new honeycombs coming. I'll talk about that later. There's goods today. We're going to talk about goods, food, services, transportation, space, and money. So let's go through each, and I'll give examples. Number 1, physical goods. You've all heard of eBay, where people are sharing used goods, but we're seeing other business models emerge, such as on-demand rental, or even new, more advanced forms of types of sharing. Take a look at this one, Yerdle. Yerdle's a startup out of San Francisco, and they believe that people shouldn't have to buy anything anymore. Why? Everything that you need in your life is actually in your neighbor's closet or garage. Who here has a storage facility or stuff in their garage they can't even keep track of, or a basement? Lots of us do. Now with Yerdle, you can take pictures of your idle assets. That's one of the tenets, idle assets. And then other people around you do the same, and you swap and barter, and there's no money exchanged. Very interestingly enough, the founder of this startup, Andy Rumid, is the former chief strategy officer of Walmart. Next, meet Play. It used to be called Play Go. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and for a number of quarters, we were not buying her toys, we were getting them rented on demand. Why own Duplos when I'm not gonna need them when she's 4? With Play, it's a subscription to sanitized Legos with extra pieces. And they're gonna expand into other things as well. For the ladies, there's bag, borrow, and steal, and for the gentlemen, you can get Rolex watches on demand as well. Lots of startups in this market. There's actually 9,000 startups in this market. I've only brought a small selection, as you can see on the honeycomb. Next, the maker movement. Meet Tech Shop. In major cities, there's over 10 cities here in United States that have a tech shop. And this is a place where there's large tools, woodworking, metalworking, 3D printers, laser cutting, CNC machines, and classes, and a community of makers come together. And any given day, there's 150 makers there that are creating new products instead of buying them. For example, have you heard of Square? That came out of Tech Shop. Have you seen the foldable kayak on the Shark Tank? That came out of Tech Shop. People are creating their own products in the maker movement. Next, can food be shared? Let's look at the green hexagon. We're certainly seeing a lot of on-demand models like Sprig or Spoon Rocket where food is delivered to you very quickly. But I wanted to bring a very unique example. It's clear that many of you have heard about Airbnb, but have you heard about Feastly, where people's home kitchens are now becoming restaurants? That's right, you can go to somebody else's house for an authentic, friendly meal, home-cooked Peruvian or Chinese food that you can't get at a restaurant, and make new friends. As Brian said, it's human to human. Food is part of the collaborative economy. What about services? Lots of different services. There's business and personal services. Have you heard of Instacart, where a small group of the crowd can bring you anything from different stores right to your home? I grabbed this screenshot. This is Atlanta. These are different products that in this specific city that can be delivered to you within an hour's notice. Instacart, the crowd is doing personal services. The CEO of Help Around will be here today. Is he here, Yishal? Not yet. So what about healthcare? If you're a diabetic and you're traveling to different cities or countries, healthcare systems may not be enough. So with Help Around, we're seeing peer-to-peer or human-to-human diabetic support. So if you need insulin, somebody will bring it to you. You need somebody to check your glucose monitor, somebody can bring that to you. The crowd is self-supporting each other when America's healthcare system is being scrutinized. The crowd. And then Odesk and Elance, who recently merged. Lauren, I think, raise your hand over here. We'll be on a panel after this break together to talk about how you can tap the crowd for business workers at any given time. The Crowd Company's newsletter is created by Odesk. I've trained the Odeskers to create it on demand. They're 1099 workers working close to me. Now, what about transportation? Maria is right here from Sidecar. You'll hear her from the panel. Sidecar enables car sharing. They just raised $15 million 2 days ago. Congratulations. We'll learn from her at the panel, but I also wanted to share some other examples. I took this screenshot. This boat is available here in Atlanta. It's peer-to-peer boat sharing. Did you know that boats are only used 17 days out of the year? That's 4% of the year. So why would you want to own a boat if you can just get one on demand? But if you own a boat, why don't you activate it and generate revenues when it's idle? Human to human, peer to peer, boat bound. And of course you've heard of Uber. Uber started with town cars, have moved into Uber X where regular people will drive you, and Uber Pool. But more interestingly enough, they started to deliver groceries and retail. Augie Ray and I talk about this. He lives in New York. And this is just a screenshot from here from Atlanta. Now, what's really interesting is Uber's biggest investor is Google, who's invested over $250 million. It's the largest investment Google Ventures has ever done. Now, why is Google and Uber getting into bed? Well, when you look carefully, it's not about cars. Don't make that mistake. Uber is actually a threat to Amazon. Local, real-time delivery in your city through a crowd of drivers on demand. Uber is a threat to Amazon. What about space? There's office space and personal space. People are renting out their offices. They have idle space. You can get co-working on demand. And then here in Atlanta, look at all these properties, Airbnb. I can stay at these unique properties right here, right now. Look at that one for $275. That's a tree house. Or you can get a loft downtown here in Midtown. There's many different types of properties that you can get from Airbnb. And they use Facebook Connect, so you can see which one of your friends is either stayed at that place or a friend of a friend that's actually potentially a host. Social media was the precursor for this Airbnb. Peer-to-peer. And lastly, money. There's a number of things happening in the money space. 3 things: cryptocurrency, peer-to-peer lending, and crowdfunding. Is Gwen here from Indiegogo? She'll be on the panel. Raise your hand if you are. Let's take a look. The crowd has created over 200 currencies. You've heard of Bitcoin, but there's a whole bunch of others out there in the world. PayPal has recently integrated Bitcoin, so we're seeing it being adopted. Virgin Galactic and Dell are taking Bitcoin. This is a viable currency that's on the rise, created by the crowd. And next, let's take a look at crowdfunding. Have you heard of this watch, the Pebble? Last week, there was an announcement from a citrus company that launched something very similar. But you know what? The crowd beat Apple to market by at least a year and a half. The crowd beat Apple to market by crowdfunding this Pebble. They raised way over $12 million. There's something to be said about the power of the crowd. And next is peer-to-peer lending. Have you heard of Lending Club or Prosper? This is when people lend each other money instead of going to a bank, human to human, peer-to-peer. And it started in 2008. What happened in 2008? The crash. Airbnb and Uber started in 2008 too. Oh, there's some similarities here. And look at the amount of loans. $5 billion of loans, peer-to-peer, have happened on Lending Club on this platform. And you can see the growth rate. I captured this week. Oh, I should also add that Google is the biggest investor of Lending Club. Google is the biggest investor in this whole market. Google is doubling down in this market. So to tie everything together, at the very top, when you put crowdfunding and the maker movement together, you can see how these custom-made goods come together. This is the collaborative economy. And in December, I'll be launching a new honeycomb. We'll be adding education, utilities, and even healthcare as dedicated honeycombs. Peer-to-peer, social commerce. We recently published a research with our partners, Vision Critical, and I'll summarize this, and this is available online. You can download it. It's called Sharing is the New Buying. Download this report anytime you want. It's open research. And I'll summarize it. The adoption rates are doubling. It was 5 to 7% last year, and this year it's going to be 12 to 15%. And we only see it's going to go up. It's pinned off social media. So let's put some numbers behind this movement. Who cares? Is this really a disruption? UC Berkeley did a study that found that if a car is used more than it's just idle, right now cars are used 5% of the time. Where's your car? Sitting there. Cars are used 5% of the time. Now imagine a car is fully utilized using technologies like Sidecar. 9 cars can be taken off the road. More people are using similar cars. Now, Forbes magazine says the average cost of a car is $30,000 in the United States. So for a car manufacturer, that's a $270,000 opportunity loss. It's not just cars. What about car loans? That's going to be over $350K. Insurance, taxes, bridge tolls, parking, gasoline, aftermarket body parts. I could draw up a financial argument that says that one properly shared car could have $1 million ecosystem impact. That's one car. What about 100 cars? What about 100,000 cars? What about 100 million cars? That's just one category. What about goods, services, food? So I ask you, is this a business disruption? Let's bring the lights up. I'd love to hear from you, and there's no wrong answers, and I'll repeat back what you say. What's causing this movement? Love to hear. There's over 15 different things that could be causing it. Love to hear. Shout it out. Reduce transaction costs. Good. The economy slump, right. Efficiency of sharing. Thank you, social media. What else? Match.com for everything. Thank you. There's a marketplace for everything. There's 9,000 startups. Relationships. Thank you, Denise. What else? Economic benefit from owning stuff. Thank you, Augie. In the back. Robin says aggregation of capital in fewer people. The 1%ers, perhaps? Thank you. Yes?
Crowd ratings and trust.
Crowd ratings and trust. Thank you. Did you know when you're in an Uber car and sidecar and Lyft, they're rating you as a passenger and how well of a customer you are? Which brand wouldn't want that data on the best customers?
Access versus ownership.
Oh, thank you, Denise. Access, we have the ability to access things rather than own them because mobile makes it so easy. I'll shout out a few more. IBM's here, so Internet of Things makes it very easy. Mobile devices are everywhere, apps. One thing that's probably not well known is the amount of VC funding in this space is incredible. Since January 1st, and I'm tracking on a spreadsheet, you can find it in some of my tweets, there's been $2.7 billion funded since January 1st. If you think social media was heavily funded, this market has been heavily funded. Thank you. You can bring the lights back down. Great answers. See how I crowdsourced that? Okay. Speaking of crowds, what about our friend King Frederick VII? He saw that revolution coming. He had two choices, fight them or work with them. And what he did was unprecedented. He went outside of his gates and he said, I want to collaborate with the crowd, this mob. I don't want to fight you. I want to work with you. And he ratified the Constitution and gave a lot of the power up to the people. But he said, I still want to be the king, but we can have a multi-tiered system. What happened to him? I'll tell you in a minute. But let's talk about our choice, this shakeup with brands. What can we do to be resilient? And I'm pleased to share with you, this is the solution. This is the collaborative economy value chain. And we're going to go through 3 business models. There's really only 3, which your company can do. Now, your company probably makes products, services, or has marketplaces of buyers and sellers around you. And it's very simple. We're seeing 3 behavior trends. People want access to things instead of owning them. We're seeing the rise of marketplaces, and we're seeing the maker movement. So it's a very simple transition. It's a business model change. If you have physical products, you now turn them into a service. If your company offers services, you instead change that to become a marketplace. And if you have a marketplace, you get them to actually build the products around you. Let me give you 11 examples from leading companies that are in this space. First one, let's call that brand as a service. People don't need to own things. They don't want to own things. They just want them on demand. Let's call that brand as a service. Guess what? It's not new. Netflix and Salesforce have been doing this for some time. But now we're seeing car companies are struggling with this change, so they're changing their business model to be a social business model. BMW in San Francisco has a Drive Now program where you pay a $90 membership fee, then you can rent 1 series of electric cars, and when you get into that car, you open it with your mobile device. You can actually book where you're going to have your car parked in another part of the city, and once you drive there, you get out of that car, you never have to drive that car again. I asked BMW, why do you do this? And they say, In the future, we know we can't sell any more cars. Cities are saturated. So instead of selling 1,000 BMWs, we want to sell one BMW 1,000 times, not 9. BMW as a service. Daimler, Chrysler, Toyota have followed suit. What about consumable goods? Nordstrom recently bought Trunk Club, which sends men a subscription-based set of clothes. If you know a man in your life that's not stylish or doesn't have time, now all these things can be sent to you on demand. Clothes as a service. And then local hometown in Atlanta, the Home Depot has been renting out tools and trucks and cleaning equipment because people don't need to own that. That's been happening for a number of years. But recently, in December, they partnered with Uber in New York, where you can actually have Christmas trees as a service. See, there's idle lots with Christmas trees sitting around, and Uber has idle drivers that might have trucks, and many New Yorkers, like Augie, probably doesn't have a car or need one or want one. It's a cost. So with the push of a button on an app, you can have a Christmas tree delivered to your house in Manhattan, and everybody wins. Instead of owning things, we're seeing new service models emerge. So I'll make a prediction at the end of each of these 3 segments. The prediction that I have, and I'm going to quote Lisa Gansky, that we will have access over ownership. New business models will emerge where we don't need to buy things, we just have memberships to them. So if you're a company that makes physical goods, I think the future is you will offer a membership to your goods, and people won't want to own them. That's brand as a service. Ready for the next one? Let's take a look at marketplace models. We're seeing them arise. This smart lady over here said there's a Match.com for everything. There's one for cars and boats and food. I already showed you all those examples. So what did we do when we saw MySpace and Friendster and Facebook emerge? What did corporations do? I know Lithium is here in the house. We built our own versions on our corporate website, right? How many of you have your own private online community that's branded? Show of hands. A number of folks. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to partner and build our own marketplaces. Walmart, one of our members, launched video game return capability where you could resell your games. Walmart, Fortune 1 by the way, enables a marketplace of used goods in their own stores and in their Sam's Clubs. If Walmart is participating in the collaborative economy, it's a signal to the rest of us to pay attention to this change. Next is Patagonia. This brand is built on sustainability, and they actually took out an ad in mainstream magazines and said, here's a picture of our jacket. We don't want you to buy it. Don't buy our jacket. That's what Patagonia's paid advertisement said. Instead, get it used in the eBay community called Common Threads, where we have used Patagonia equipment that you can buy. Now, why would Patagonia do such a thing? Number one, it's their total commitment to sustainability. And two, it shows they have a thriving community of customers. And three, it lowers the actual value of cost to people because you know you can resell that good back. Even workplace. Gap partnered with bike sharing company Divvy in San Francisco. And during the warm months, these bikes are serviced and provided for employees. During the cold months, those Divvy bike sharing employees are automatically given jobs in retail during the cold season when you have the holiday seasons. This can even impact employment, a marketplace of workers. So I'll make a radical prediction in the second one. Just as we saw many corporations create their own versions of MySpace and Friendster, Sephora has their own Beauty Talk, HP has theirs. I'm going to make a prediction that a very progressive hotel company will pilfer the top Airbnb hosts and say, don't work with Airbnb, work with us. And the way this could work is, you still want to stay at a really cool loft here in Atlanta. That's a picture from an Atlanta loft from Airbnb. But now you know it's W certified. And that host gets something that Airbnb can never provide. Members from the loyalty program. Oh, and W sheets and maybe even cleaning services. Now, the guests still get something. They get that local, cool, unique experience at a real loft, but a guaranteed level of support and trust. And W gets something they were never going to get, at least 15% of that revenue transaction plus any item sold. Does that sound radical? It's not. It's just franchising. Hotels already do it. So that's the marketplace model. Just like we built our own online communities, we will replicate these marketplaces. Let's do the last one. This one's called Enable a Platform. Enable a Platform. And it gets more complicated as we move around this collaborative economy value chain. And we've seen the rise of the maker movement and crowdfunding, so it means we will also bring that in-house. Software companies have been doing that for years. iTunes has a platform from Apple. IBM has their own. Oracle has their own. Did you know that U-Haul has enabled crowdfunding, where you can actually own a piece of a truck? You spend your own money, and you are now an investor in U-Haul's Investor Club. Now, why would U-Haul allow the crowd to crowdfund their own products? 2 reasons. Number 1, you can get better rates than from a bank. You dictate the rates. And secondly, and this is the important one, crowdfunding is the highest form of loyalty. See, marketers, we've been told, the person who buys the most, highest form of loyalty. Crowdfunding is the highest form of loyalty. Why? It's shared destiny. If they're going to invest in you building new products, they're going to give you content on how to improve it, and then they're going to evangelize it, and you better well bet that they're going to buy it and tell other people around them. Crowdfunding is the highest form of loyalty. There's a 3D printing community called Shapeways, where people are printing out their own different pieces of art. And there was a rise of Hasbro, Transformers, and My Little Ponies emerging. And Hasbro had the choice, shut it down or partner with the Shapeways community. And they chose to partner, and they gave the 3D printing files, called STL files, to the actual Shapeways community and said, print them out, and we get a cut of those revenues. They could have fought it with the lawyers, and they said, instead, we'll work with the makers. And I recently learned from Natanya, from Whole Foods, one of our members, that they've even impacted their supply chain and brand promise at Whole Foods. They partnered with Instacart to enable the crowd to deliver products to people's homes within 1 hour. That extended the brand promise. Curbside delivery, homeside delivery, Whole Foods quality. A crowd and a company working together. I'll be at Coke tomorrow, and I'll be learning more about, they built their own version of TaskRabbit called Work Now Locally. And this app is brilliant. They've actually launched this app called Winolo, and they encourage their own customers to stock shelves like an employee. So you turn on the app, you see if there's any jobs in a retail location, you accept the job, you stretch out, you go meet the general manager at that retail, like Home Depot or Lowe's, and you say, hey, I'm here from Winolo to stock the fridges. And they stock it. The Coke fridges are stocked. Maybe the other competitors are not because they're waiting for some other person to show up and do it. And that person gets paid. Coke turns its own customers into partners, a crowd company. Lastly, even financial services companies are getting in on the game. One of our founding members, Barclays Card, built the Barclays Card Ring and encouraged millennials to design the terms and the fees, and they gave that card to them and said, use that card, it's yours, you've helped build it, and any extra profits go to the nonprofits of your choice. Barclays turned product innovation over to the crowd. So my prediction for this third one is, because the crowd's gonna fund, design, build, ship, and do every part of our company together with us, that in the future, we can't tell the difference between customers and employees. They look the same. So bringing it all together, this is the collaborative economy value chain. This is your key. Here's the insights. The first model is business to person. Sell one good 1,000 times. and offer value-added services on top. Number 2, build your own marketplace or partner with a startup that has a marketplace. Enable peer-to-peer reselling of used goods and services and scale new value. And the last one, the maker movement, business plus the people. Tap the crowd for innovation and share the ideas and the resources and the rewards. These slides are public on SlideShare. I'll tweet it out right after I speak. You can download them and use them as you wish. So 5 takeaways, and then we'll close out. Number 1, oh, it's not clicking forward. People are empowered to get what they need from each other. The crowd is becoming like a company, and they're going to bypass inefficient corporations. Just like we used social media, we will use these same strategies all over again, the next phase of social business. But it requires business model change. It won't be easy. But if you do this, you become resilient and your company is connected, empowering others, built to last, and profitable. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, what happened to our friend King Frederick? He offered to collaborate, and the crowd accepted him and said, you can remain the king. In fact, his next of kin is still in the palace today. That's the 2nd oldest monarch in the world, and Denmark is the happiest country in the world by global ratings. You see, King Frederick gave up his throne, but he gained the kingdom. And we too, if we want to be part of this collaborative economy, we must give up our business models, but we gain the market. I leave you with one final question. What side of history will you be on? Thank you. I'm Jeremiah.
I think this is the most brilliant thing that's happened in business in my lifetime. I mean, this, as you say, the efficiencies, and that's what social was about, always, was these incredible efficiencies of information, right? I thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I hope we have some questions from the audience. If not, I've got one or two. And by the way, there's a wonderful movie in Danish about King Frederick, or about his father and what happened there. It's
I'll have to check that out.
a brilliant movie. Questions for Jeremiah from the audience?
I actually have one.
Yes.
It's me, Denise.
Where are you?
Okay, so Jeremiah,
Yeah.
we're seeing a lot of things with the regulation in these industries. And, you know, I see a real political shift happening very soon down the line. Can you kind of walk through your idea of how that's going to play out?
Sure. Each country and each city is responding differently. In Las Vegas, car sharing, ride sharing is banned completely. But in California, it's become legalized with the Public Utilities Commission. There's certain places they can't pick up, like the airport, but other than that, it's completely legal. In San Francisco, Airbnb has brokered a deal with the city, and they pay 14% hotel tax. It's about money, people. So we're seeing that some cities are figuring out there's new regulation and ways that they can look at health controls and safety and offer new forms of certification, and then they get new revenues. I think that's the future of that. There's a question from Augie. I definitely want to make sure we get to Augie.
It's going to be a good one. Be prepared.
Yeah.
Hey, very nice presentation. The question I've got for you is that the collaborative economy holds the promise of both sides of the equation coming together and collaborating, and yet what you're beginning to see with Uber is that the haves are beginning to collaborate against the have-nots. We're beginning to see a driving down of the price, and drivers are saying they're not getting their fair share. This, to me, was not the promise of the collaborative economy, and I'm curious if you think that that's the trend that we're going to see, or if you think that the market will work that out.
So anybody who thinks this is hippy-dippy communal living is wrong. This is actually capitalism. Uber has raised, by the way, I'm not popular in this market when I say that, in the core idealist space. Just like when I said companies should join social media, I wasn't popular with the social media purists at the time. But that's okay. Look where we are today. So we are seeing this form of new feudalism emerging. Serfs and lords. There's no question that's happening. But there's other players too, sidecars here, Lyft is here, that can provide alternatives for drivers. But because these startups are so heavily funded, they're able to just throw money at these drivers to keep this going. Where it ends up, I'm seeing some things change. So for example, there's a union out of New York, Augie, called the Freelancers Union. And then there's peers.org, where they're trying to provide rights and even 401k plans and financial plans for these freelancers in this space. So we might see a union. There's actually an association of Uber drivers that emerged out of Seattle in response to Uber. So it's
Probably socially connected, right?
they're absolutely using Facebook.
Yeah.
So the jury's still out on what this model is going to look at, but there is absolutely a risk that the freelancers of the world are going to be taken advantage of. There's no question.
Great question.
There's one over here. Or wherever Denise is. Oh, in the back.
Hey, Michael Idernopoulos from People Links. Great talk, Jeremiah. So my question is, I spend a lot of time on eBay, and one of the things that I've noticed on eBay is there's a real division between people who are there for the commerce, they're really there to make money, and people who are there for the community. They're selling like 99-cent widgets. They can't possibly be making very much money on the transactions, but they clearly really groove on this community that's formed around bobblehead dolls or whatever it is. So it seems like for the most part, these crowdfunded models have thrived on a kind of a convergence of those two phenomena, the ability to do commerce and to create communities. But you look at something like Uber, and that just looks like cold-blooded capitalism, right? That's all about the money. So my question is, what do you think is really driving this phenomenon? Is it commerce? Is it community? Does it have to be both? Or is, like, in the long run, is one of those things really the pole that's holding up this tent?
Thank you. Here's some data from our recent survey that I showed you, those immediate stats. We asked people, why do you participate in this space? And the 1 and 2 answer is very simple. Efficiency, you mentioned that, and value. It's cheaper. Number 3 and 4 were unique experiences and connecting to others, so that human aspect. And then number 5 was for sustainability reasons, not buying more shit. So mainly people are doing this because of efficiency and scale. And I think that's a good thing, because it means it's going to propagate further and last longer.
Did you ask about customer experience, maybe? Because clearly, with Uber, it's the CX too. The ability to be able to so efficiently and so easily.
Right, a magical experience. Did you know that the Airbnb founders are former designers, and they heavily studied Disney? Disney was an inspiration to them. Magical experiences. You open the door, somebody greets you that you don't know, gives you a hug. Would you like a smoothie? It's so nice to meet you, like we're old friends. Welcome to our house. Let me show you around the neighborhood. So they're actually training the host to provide that experience in actual homes. So that's why people are often going to Airbnb, which might be a different promise than the Uber promise. But what will be a different promise than Sidecar, which is ride sharing, multiple people in the car.
I would like to ask, so question I have is, what is the meaning of brand in this, right? If you own nothing, if you are constantly evolving your model to stay relevant, what the hell are you?
Let's answer that with social media. What's the role of brand in social media? I remember when I was at a company working, and they said, this is our logo guide. These are our JPEGs. Don't let any blogger use that. Cease and desist. You don't hear that now. Give them logos. Let them upload it. Have them create their own YouTube videos and Instagram. The logo, it's ours. So let's take that principle in social media. The brand now needs to enable the makers and the crowdfunders to build products with your company. Ford did something brilliant. They gave Uber drivers and Lyft drivers $3,000 discount to buy their cars. Why? Now it's a mobile sales station. You get into a brand new Uber and it's a brand new Ford car, and you go, this is a cool car, nice. And let's imagine they get 5 rides an hour, and they worked 8 hours. That's 40 test rides a day. Times that by 4 weeks, times that by 6 months, that's thousands of test rides for $3,000. Ford gave their brand to a potential competitor of Uber drivers and it said, you can have that. Disclosure, Ford's one of our council members. So.
Okay, I think one more question.
Hi.
Dan Gingiss in the front. Hi. Another great question.
Sure.
The question for the rest of you is about security, whether it's regards to currency or people showing up at your doorstep.
Right. We're seeing that these platforms are creating 4 phases for security. The first one is they're vetting out potential riffraff. And there's a background check, and I think it's very lightweight. In Airbnb, the hosts actually have to upload their driver's license. I don't know exactly what happens with that data. And so do some of the renters. And so that's happening. That's phase 1, vetting. Number 2, ratings and reviews. This gentleman over here said it. So you look at prior ratings and reviews. Phase 3, Facebook Connect and Twitter Connect. Are they really in a social network? Do they have a real ID? Are they real people? Do I know people that know them? Friends of a friend, FOF, right? And the last one is smart insurance companies like MetLife and Lloyd's of London are providing insurance to Sidecar, Uber, and Lyft and Airbnb to cover that. So vetting, ratings and reviews, social networks, and insurance policies. Now, is it perfect? No, it's definitely not perfect. And I think that's just human nature. But I think many brand experiences are not perfect as well.
I think we're also going to inevitably see the slow-moving FTC get involved in something like this,
Yeah.
too. It's just got to happen, and certainly a lot of the state governments are. Well, we're going to have a panel with Sidecar and Indiegogo coming up soon, so you
And
can...
Elance.
And Elance,
Yes.
thank you. So you can hear what's going on with real companies doing real stuff. So I think this is going to be a wonderful day. I've got some announcements to make, but
Thank you so much.
thank you.